Hello there, folks, and welcome to the stream. My name is Mike D'Angelo, aka That Tellest Guy, and I am joined by my lovely co-host, Rhianna.
Hello.
And our lovely co-host, ChatGPT. Hello. Today's episode is going to be a little bit weird, a little bit different. Rhianna and I have been doing a lot of virtual assistant stuff with ChatGPT. It's really great for planning things. It's great for getting some soundboard stuff. When you have a huge fantasy universe and tons of content like we do, it's easy to use that to be kind of a nice jumping off point for an AI personal assistant of sorts. So you can say, do I want, I want you to look at my existing catalog and recommend XYZ things based on whatever parameters I'm feeding into, ChatGPT or whatever AI bot you're using.
And we just started sort of playing with it within the past week. We're kind of the mindset that the artificial intelligence being passed off as real art or things like that. We're a little iffy on the AI, but if you're using it as a tool to fuel your own creativity and not replace it, then I think it's a really interesting
we are concept. Solidly in the vein of you're not going to use AI to take shortcuts. We're trying to use it to, well, I guess that's not true. We're trying
to enhance, we were exploring sort of practical uses. I just told Michael today about how you can set a budget and set a grocery store and say, make me a shopping list for 2 people for 2 weeks with this budget from this store, and it'll pull that information for you and recommend meals and stuff. That's the kind of stuff I think is really useful. And when you're stuck creatively
there you go. You're stuck in a lot of ways.
It's kind of interesting to kind of train yourself to ask it the right questions to give it the answer that you already want out of it. Also helped me write my goals for 2025, little life things.
You got a cool thing that's coming up that I don't want to spoil, because if you do throw it on Etsy, I think that would be a good talking point. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about it off air.
I completely forgot what you just did.
We're gonna talk about it off air. This is not to be shared until it's ready for prime time.
Yeah, I have no idea what he's talking about, so let's jump into it.
Let's jump into what?
I don't know, the questions.
They don't even know that there
are questions.
All right, so the whole point of tonight's episode is Rhianna and I were going to talk about battles and historic events in the history of Tellest, but we wanted a little bit more time to do the what ifing. And instead we decided, since we're doing all this stuff with AI, let's try and play with it a little bit and use it to, together with Rhianna, interview me about Tellest. I don't know the context yet.
So here's the context. Initially, I said to ChatGPT, you are interviewing the author of a fantasy series. List 10 thought-provoking questions which give the opportunity for detailed and exciting answers. So that's where I got 10 questions. Then I said, ask 10 additional questions that are meant to be fun and playful. So we're actually going to start with the fun and playful, because I think
we're zigzagging, right?
Yeah, we're going to zigzag. I think that they're pretty interesting. So we'll do one of one and one of the other, and then just have fun with it. I find it fascinating that AI would create a list like this, so that'd be fun. Question 1. If you could borrow one magical item from your world for a day, what would it be and how would you use it?
All right. From your world for a day, what would it be and how would you use it? I instantly started thinking about Luca's treasures, because he's got a lot of utility. He's not a super powered human being or anything like that. He's got powers, but his powers is finding cool stuff. And initially I had thought the sky talent is pretty cool, because used the right way, it's basically a flight power, right? But then I thought the Iron Kiss, which is the gauntlet that has the ability to unlock any lock.
Oh, that would be fun.
That's a lot of fun.
You can go to the bank.
This lockbox is mine. This lockbox is mine. This lockbox is mine. They're all mine.
I would pick Aquinicus and I would just
ride
go
that
on
horse.
a freaking ride. Aquinicus is a steampunk magical creation that
Here, you know what?
where magic and science intersect.
We're writing them out just because of the fun of it and everything. But we have pictures of these, so we might as well show them off. So let's go down to our artifacts. I need to have like this set up with like a table of contents too. Like there's no reason not to at this point.
Yeah, you got lots of content.
Where are you, treasures?
Where are you, Christmas?
Alright, we got an Aquinicus somewhere over here. Did I put your Aquinicus up here?
No, there's.
Well, this is Zabraeff. This is the fake Aquinicus.
Okay.
But I thought that I had yours here somewhere.
It's
Well,
down at the bottom, I think.
here's the Iron Kiss.
Very cool.
And then let's see if we can't find Rhianna's Equine. There it is. So this one is hand painted by Rhianna. Mm-hmm. You made this like over 10 years ago, right? It was before we got married.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
So, and this is in our bedroom.
It's also huge.
Yeah, this is not a tiny picture. This is a tiny picture. I can't get it life-sized for you.
It's probably like 4 by 4.
I think it might even be bigger than that.
Maybe like
6 by 6, maybe.
Could be. It's big.
It couldn't be 6 by 6 because like my arm span is not 6 feet, but it's
Yeah.
pretty darn big.
Right.
I know that I can like reach it when I extend my arms, but like just
Right.
barely. So
Pretty fun. All right, now we'll zigzag to a serious question. What inspired the world building in your series, and how did you balance realism with fantasy elements?
I want to say that most of the... When I was building Tellest, it started with discovering some fantasy worlds. I've told the story a bunch of times, but I kind of had the perfect crossroads of time and like a creative outlet and a creative hobby that like I was just getting into. Like I was just getting into reading again after like dropping it for so many years. My aunt had given me a copy of The Thousand Orcs by R.A. Salvatore, and Baldur's Gate 2 had just come out, and I played the heck out of Baldur's Gate 1, like modded the crap out of it back in the day, to the extent that modding was a thing. You were able to like take portraits and like upload your own sounds and stuff like that. Like there was a lot of creative freedom in that game. So when I knew that Baldur's Gate 2 was coming out and I knew that you could write your own biography, I started to write a character biography after a test in school. We had like the accelerated learning classes, which were like 90 minutes long, like a college class.
Right.
But like they still weren't like at a point where like it made total sense, because it was 90 minutes and it was a test, and my test was done in like 15 minutes. So I was like, well, I'm stuck here for 75 minutes. Let me write the biography for my character. And it was 2 pages of just, basic information for this character. And then I think I still had like tons of time, and I was like, well, let me write a story about him too. So that was kind of where the creative side started. And they always kind of tell you like, write what you know. And a lot of what I originally wrote in like the book that shall not be named, way back when, was
based on people
I knew and experiences. Like I had a tumultuous growing up, and I used a lot of that like angst and like suffering to kind of build my experiences and everything like that. At this point, most of it is kind of built within the world itself. Like I have kind of built Tellest into an engine that helps to tell its own stories, and it's more fantasy than realism at this point. But I think like for realism, when you're talking about it the quote unquote real way, you're not talking about like, oh, physics work the way that they're supposed to work in this world. You're talking about not everything has to be the way that it's presented in literature.
Yeah, and I think that you can have like fantasy elements but human depth, like realism in the character experience. Certainly. So I think that's where that comes in.
I think one of the best ways to express realism has happened very recently in cozy fantasy, because not every fantasy should be doom and gloom.
Yeah, and a
right?
sweeping adventure and like constant struggle. Like we're living that right now. People want
right. But well, so
play.
maybe to your point, you're saying no, it needs to be doom and gloom. That's real.
No.
But
I like the idea of the cozy fantasy because
yeah.
the world we live in is so chaotic. Like the idea of just going home to a little hearth, little potion making.
Hey,
like...
I'm going to try and learn this new cooking recipe. I don't have YouTube, but I have, the sprites that live in my lanterns,
exactly.
and I'm going to cook for them or something like that.
I love that. All right, fun question. Which character would you trust to plan your birthday party, and which one would absolutely ruin it?
Which character would you trust to plan your birthday?
And which one would absolutely ruin it?
Absolutely ruin it. All right. So I think we have to start with the ruin one, because the one that jumped to my mind right away is like, so we have some baby characters. So there's different iterations of our characters across different timelines and things like that. The Juramentado was the original bad guy for the Tellest universe. Like, he was the big bad that kind of united a lot of characters to be like the Tellest Avengers, essentially. In the new timeline, he's not quite that way, but he is maybe a little bit quirky and different.
Baby Juramentado would ruin it.
Not Baby Juramentado. I mean, it could be Baby Juramentado. But I'm thinking like a grown version of this version of Juramentado, who
mischievous
is like,
little imp.
well, he misses his dad. Let's bring his dad back. And it's
oh my
like,
god!
Not really Papa D'Angelo. It's a different version of my dad.
I love it.
Stuff like that. As for a character who would do a good job with it, I feel like Gaston.
I was thinking the same thing.
Gaston is... Let me see if I can bring up a picture of Gaston. We've definitely got pictures of him. Gaston is just like... He is a people person anyway. Like, his whole thing is kind of the study of people. And as much as, like, wizards like magic and everything like that, or, like, the study of herbs... Yeah. You got something to say? Gaston studies is people. Like, he's a anthropologist, essentially. Not necessarily historical people, but he wants to know how everybody ticks in the world. And I think to some extent, like, he would be thoughtful about like what would make me happy, and he would build something based on that. Plus, he has a huge network of people that he could tap into to build out something like that.
I like it.
There's your answer.
Good answers. Alright, back to serious. Your characters face complex moral choices. How do their decisions reflect the central themes of your story?
Your characters face complex moral choices. How do their choices reflect the central themes of your story?
That made me think of, like, April's Fools, I think.
I mean, I would say that at least when you're tackling the concept of April's Fools, the theme, the trope, whatever, is kind of like found family.
Mm-hmm.
And at least in that situation, you kind of get the sense that found family is as important, if not more important, than the family that you're born with, that you're faced with.
Or that you marry into.
Yeah, and even like
story. Not us.
Even like when it comes to like your own personal like decision making and everything like that. Like, for at this point, April's Fools is years and years old, so I'm going to lightly spoil, but I'll try and be vague about it. We know that that Bixby is brought face to face with someone in his past that he harbors some pretty ill will towards, but it's not his vengeance, his quest for vengeance, that wins over, his personal choices in that story. It's the love that he has for this new family that he's got.
Right.
He
and trusting each other is a big piece of that.
Yeah. And I think like a little bit of it too in The April's Fools is about like understanding like your mental bandwidth and like realizing that you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah. When I read that question, I immediately thought of Mariah, like, because she has the propensity to do great evil if she chose, but she doesn't.
Right. Yeah. And I think if anybody, like, she probably has. No, you know what? Like, a lot of her stuff is mental too. Like, she ran away because she thought that she was so destructive, and she kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
And I don't know necessarily that either of those things were super moral. Like, there's not too many things for the April's Fool's crew where they're left holding on to the thought of, if I do this, bad things are going to happen. It's not Fable for them, you know, like they're not going to grow horns.
But that'd be fun.
Yeah, a lot of my stuff is kind of not super gray, right? Like, it's not the Game of Thrones, you know, everybody's got shades. It's kind of the golden age of superheroes where most of the heroes are good, most of the bad guys are pretty bad.
Right.
There's shades of black and white, we'll say. And certainly going forward, we try and kind of blend it a little bit more.
Right.
But my what I really like is the story where good triumphs over evil. So, you know, there's not too many.
Yeah, every story doesn't need to be morally ambiguous to the point where you're, like, beat over the head with it.
Right.
Like the Sword of Truth series, Terry Goodkind. Every freaking page was, like, his reasoning for, if I do this, then this will happen.
Right.
If I do this, then this will happen.
Right.
Like,
and as we just discussed, I like cozy-ish. You
Yeah.
know, like, the Mageborn trilogy is very cozy. Like, most of my stuff is pretty cozy. Like,
Yeah.
there's not... We ramp things up in each trilogy where, like, all right, book one
Stakes
is a
are higher.
personal stake.
Yeah.
Book two is like, oh, there's a city in danger. And book three is, if things go wrong here, like, the world
Ends.
might be facing a cataclysm.
Right. Fun question. If your main characters formed a band, what genre would they play, and who would play which instrument?
All right. If your main characters formed a band, do you want me to... There's so many characters. So, like...
I would say any characters that are integral to their own story. So, like, ones that are...
Do you want the lead protagonists in, like, various stories? Or do you want them to be, like... Like, for instance, are we choosing the lead character from the Tales of Tellest books? Or are we choosing a group from one book or something like that?
I think it can be anyone that has a fleshed out story. So, you know, like, Bixby features big.
Tuda Pictures.
Lucinda pictures big. Like, Kayanani.
There's so many.
Yeah.
So many.
You've got Gaston, you've got Adelia. Like, I'm assuming that your genre is going to be symphonic metal since that's your preferred.
I mean, here's the way that I think about that, though. Just because your dad listens to country music doesn't mean that you play country music, you know? Like, would they rebel against me? Would they do something that's not symphonic metal?
Punk.
Possibly. Ska. Ska. Brother.
Oh my god.
Let's try and take a look at things. We've got tons of pictures to kind of choose from. I like the idea of... Oh, no.
What's the matter?
I think Luna was down here and she stepped on something and a USB came loose.
Oh no.
Anyway, I would imagine that it would be something a little bit different, right? It's medieval fantasy, maybe like world music, like, but I don't know for sure because
Like a Yanni type situation.
not New World, like you'd hear like sitars and
Okay.
and toots, you know.
Mr. Toots.
Mr. Toots. Not. We're not going to hear Enya or
Why not?
Enigma or anything like that. I don't know. That is a fun question, and I don't really feel like I have. You know what?
So I feel like Adelia is a Swiftie. Let's do it this way.
Well, hold on. So, do you remember what the genre of? Oh, I remember. So, do you remember in Star Wars at the cantina they have a name for that genre.
I don't know that.
It's not jazz, it's jizz. It's jizz music. That's what's going to happen in the Tellest universe. They're going to have like some kind of tavern, and they're not playing jazz, they're not playing rock, they're playing Rick. Something like that.
I like it.
There also is, if I'm not mistaken, in the what's the convention that we went to in Jersey? It was the Philcon. I don't know if this is everywhere, but they don't have folk music, they have filk music. So again, kind of blends into that, and it's like a Ren Fair cosplay-esque kind of thing.
Okay.
Maybe they all play hurdy-gurdies.
Hurdy-gurdies.
Does that answer your question? I feel like
Sort
that
of.
answers your question.
I'm into it. I feel like Lucinda would have a tambourine. That's all I
Lucinda would have whatever she wants.
Because she can
transform anything into anything.
I love it. Icarus's music is like Gregorian chants. I like that.
No, Anson would have... Well, I guess Anson would just be a singer. Although, it depends on what version of Anson you're talking about. Because Anson has the weird spider voice.
Yeah, that's true. Ah! It's not ska, it's skedaddle. Leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
Alright. Back to serious questions. Magic plays a significant role in your series. How did you design your magic system, and what limitations did you create to keep it grounded?
Alright, read that one more time for me.
Magic plays a significant role in your series. How did you design your magic system, and what limitations did you create to keep it grounded?
So in Tellest, it's not like a Mistborn or anything like that, where like the magic system itself is very like organized, and I think that is the concept of it, right? Like,
well, it's the strain gives you natural power, and then you can also learn.
Right. Well, so magic itself, you can learn from from training, from research, stuff like that. I think, as far as that magic system goes, like, there's nothing out of the ordinary there. So, like, we don't really have to dive too far into that. Like, you're tapping into the Aether. Adelia is kind of like the tour guide character of how that works and everything. So if someone does want to see how, like, the basics of magic work in the Tellest universe, Mageborn is a great place to start. But if you are talking about what sets the world of Tellest apart, it's definitely the strain. And it basically makes the fantasy universe into a shades of X-Men, right? Because it's basically like magical mutation,
right?
And
/ radiation, like some
yes,
sort
well,
of like.
And that's why, that's why it's like that, because there's a convergent event that brings two worlds together. One of the worlds is basked in radiation, and when the worlds converge like that, basically magic becomes inundated with radiation,
right,
which then lends itself to people, places, artifacts, things like that. So that explains why things have these powers.
Right. I wouldn't say Tellest has a lot of limitations on the magic either. Like,
well, so originally, Raggy. Originally, the idea was that if you had a strain, if you were, afflicted with a strain, you had a good side and you had a bad side. We don't necessarily do that anymore. But I will say that there are certain races that do have that affliction. They are someone that doesn't really get the ability in its full presentation. The elves of the Tellest universe are the only ones in the entire universe who all of them have a power.
Right. They all share it.
Yeah, everyone else, you have a chance of being born with a power or developing a power or something like that. The elves of each tribe have their own power that they share amongst their tribe. And it kind of cuts down the smaller your group is. Like, we have...
Well, wait, quick question. So the tribe shares it, but it would be genetic at that point, right? Like,
right, yeah. So, like, if you had a child...
marry outside of your tribe...
Well, we haven't explored that yet. Like, if two elves had powers, we don't know how that would... What would transpire at that point. Right. We know in the April's Fools, for instance, if an elf and a gnome procreate, there's a chance for their offspring to have some kind of power.
Right.
Oh, I'm blanking on her name. I have too many characters. Why can't I think of her name? Bubbles.
Starts with an E, maybe?
I don't know. But Bubbles has the power to make bubbles, but her dad didn't have any power.
Right.
And her mom had, like, water-bending powers, essentially. And the whole point of, like, a gnome and elf...
Alira?
No.
Oh, okay, I'm wrong.
I don't believe so. But anyway, her power was that she, the gnome-elf relationship leads to potential aberrations of powers. So if you had, if Maria was the child of a gnome and an elf who had fire powers, maybe it would be plasma or something like that. It wouldn't be straight up fire. It would be something else.
Some sort of mutation of that.
Mm-hmm.
One more question.
Well, hold on. Let's do a pause real quick because we are at 28 minutes. And maybe what we do is 5 and 5 today.
And then we'll do...
Yeah. So let's real quick go to our sponsor, and then we'll be right back. And now, a word from our sponsors. The Old Aunt Mythopia is sure to be unlike anything you have ever read or experienced before. We can do both of them today. Author No Originality intends for it to be something that is interpreted differently by each person who flips through its pages. Is it a new age set of fables to rival Aesop? Perhaps it's just a series of Easter eggs for those who like gaming culture. Or maybe it is a recommendation on how to live one's life. While the book itself is full of possibilities and open to interpretation, one thing isn't: the passion with which No Originality built out the project. A team of great artists came together to make the Old Aunt Mythopia, and it shows. It takes a tremendous amount of talent to manage talent, and to bring a vision to life, and No Originality pulled it off wonderfully. Check out our promo for the Old Aunt Mythopia and Incomplete Trilogy on the Tellest website. I'm screwing up left and right. Leaving the Yeti on, turning the Yeti off when I'm not supposed to, going to screens I shouldn't be going to. The sponsor who we have through the rest of this week is No Originality is the quote unquote entity's name, and Rhianna was just listening to the sponsor spot, and she thought that his name was Noah Originality, which is like a perfect wrestling name. Right. She said that you can't see it on the book, and it's like really tiny, and it's meant to like evoke like the Nintendo seal of quality. So
I thought it was Noah Noah.
Yeah.
Originality is
so AC name. If you're listening to this this podcast, quote unquote, at all, now you know what you need to change it to.
I thought it was really funny.
So we decided, and I'm sure you heard if you were listening to the sponsor spot, we are going to stop this about halfway through. We'll debate, briefly on like an intermission, perhaps.
No debate. We'll pick this up next time.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm tired. I did a lot of work today.
Yes, you did. Yeah. Rhianna's no longer employed, so she did a bang out, bang up, bang in. You banged.
I cleaned the house. I figured I would start with housewifery before I start messing everything up again with all of my creative stuff as I
clean physical space, clean mental space.
Exactly.
All right, funny four.
Imagine your villain is forced to work a mundane 9-to-5 job. What would they do, and how long would they last?
This instantly makes me think of Loki.
From the Christmas Story?
Femme Loki in the Loki Marvel series, working at McDonald's.
Yep. I get it.
So I'll tell you what. Again, there's a lot to choose from. So how about you pick a villain, and I'll decide what they do.
What do we have? We have German Tado. We have
I don't want to pick
Riptide.
Yeah, Gerard Purdell. we could choose him. I feel like he's not like a total villain.
Yeah.
You know, like he's more, you know. But
who the heck do you have as villains? You've got bad guys.
You are bad guy, but that does not mean you are bad guy.
Who's a Black Linean?
I mean, Scherner is a bad guy. The barbarian who faces off against David in Bindings of Fate. You know what I see is him. I see him as a personal trainer.
I like it.
Climb that rope or I'll chop off your arm.
I like that a lot.
I could see something like that. I see him being like a lifeguard too, a little bit, just like wearing a man bun. You know, and you know what the problem is? The reason that I see that is because when Horace ended up drawing this version of the character, he gives me Khal Drogo a little bit,
yeah.
like and you know Jason Momoa when he was Conan or whatever,
right.
And Jason Momoa was in Baywatch. So, like, my mind is going, well, hold on. Now let's think about this. Oh, wait, he was a lifeguard. So now he's a lifeguard.
Now I'm thinking something else. So he's got blood on his little,
his lips.
His little slicey thing there, and he seems to be licking the blood off of something or other.
Mm-hmm.
He's the host of an Is It Cake.
He thinks every person is cake.
I think that
Oops, not cake. I lose again.
Oh, well. I like that. Alright. Which character's journey was the most challenging to write, and how did they evolve differently than you expected?
I'm gonna go off the beaten path a little bit here, and again, we're talking about books that are like 15 years old, and I'm the creator, and I'm allowed to spoil these things if I want. With the notion that like you have to know that this is multiple timelines now, and things that happened in one book don't necessarily have to happen in the new iterations. So I think probably what was challenging was not necessarily writing it, because I mean it was very hard for me to experience it as well, but I ended up killing a character in the second book, that you never forgave me for.
Nope. Stop reading it.
Yeah. You are so like ingrained in the Tellest universe, but you refuse to read anything beyond that until like the new books came out.
Right. Well, I'll read the new stuff. I'm not reading the other stuff.
Yeah, the trilogy you have never finished.
Destroyed. Ruined it.
So I don't think that I was prepared to have that be an experience that I was going to have. And I even knew I write my characters very much in the same vein as R.A. Salvatore, where like even if you see them die, you can get them back. You know, like it is like a D&D kind of like we're telling adventures together kind of thing, and what is the point of an adventure if it's not together? So there was always this idea that like the character was going to come back, but like the wait to get there didn't feel like it was going to happen quick enough. So that's what I'll say there. Well, all right then.
You bring that character back, you horrible betrayer. If you had to survive a day in your world without any magical abilities, what's your strategy? So I guess we could look at that in two ways. Either you're just a dude within the world, or you're like transported there like a
I saw it as me
kind of person
with the knowledge that I have of that world, with them not necessarily knowing that I am who I am, right? Like, not I am who I am. I am he who is called I am.
I am your god.
And I think like at that point the idea is like just go to a city and do your best, right? Like
just try really hard to blend in.
Realize that like, all right, I need to make sure that I wash with fucking soap. Excuse my language.
Oh my goodness, you yell at me for that all the time.
Well, Too bad. Just, like survive. Well, I guess it's a day, right? It's a day in the world. Like,
right.
just be.
Just
Like,
exist.
it's not super dangerous. Like, you go out into the woods and stuff, and some bad stuff's gonna go down. But like, I would just exist. I would like look at like the pretty environments and stuff like that. I would, frolic through a field and watch the luma bugs dance about and stuff like that.
I do feel like this is a reflection of the world we live in today, where people crave cozy fantasy. Like, you're given this opportunity to live inside of your world, and you just want to chill.
Yeah. Like, I want to
give me a day to relax. I don't want to do anything.
I want to bird watch.
Just see, watch like, some birds.
See that bird. That bird's making weird sounds that I've never heard before.
I love that. That was a really fun answer. Good job. Oh, that's fun. Okay. How do the cultures and societies in your world mirror or critique real-world issues?
How do the cultures and societies in your world
mirror or critique real-world issues? I can answer that a bit because we talked about it the last time. Sure. Adelatha is like a multicultural.
Right.
Like, we live close to the city of Philadelphia, which is like certainly emblematic of like what you would have when you have like a mix of many different types of people. And in Adelatha, you have multiple different types of people. You have different races of like anthropomorphic like varieties and stuff. And with that, you have the absolute like wonderful blend of culture and immersion and like sharing things. And then you also have the bigots, basically.
Yeah, it's weird too because like I guess maybe that's the way that you critique things, because I kind of feel like in this day and age there's a little less empathy and there's a little less like openness and willingness to be kind to each other. Yeah. So like that's in the country that we live in, but north of us, the Canadians are all like, hey, do you want to go and grab a beer, friend? Like, and we flip that. So that's the critique. We flip that in the Tellest universe. And, like, basically the northern country would be Canada.
Right.
And the southern country would be the United States. And at least in Raleigh, like, it's very much open and welcome and everything like that. But in Black Lane, it's every man for himself. Like, most of the races have been driven out and everything like that. Like, it's atypical to find another race. April's Fools, like the elves are hiding in the woods and stuff like that.
And I think the same could be said of like when you have like a fantasy world. Typically, fantasy worlds are like emblematic of like old-timey European places where you have like your hubs where travelers go and stuff. You have like your designated roads because there's not a lot of roads. Like, if you're trekking through the U.S. or like any country really nowadays, you got a lot of different ways to get to the same spot, but in like a very vast like continent basically where all of this happens, you're probably only going to have like your safe travel roads. So those roads are going to have like your tavern spots. They're going to have your like your little towns where you can go grab a bite to eat while you're traveling. In those places, the multiculturalism would be expected, but really when you get to anywhere else, like if you see a Rhinotaur in a Logano village, it's going to be weird.
Yep. I will say this. So we talked about like the critique a little bit, and I was realizing as I kind of gave my answer and as you were talking as well, that a lot of the mirroring that came from my writing came from, we talked earlier about like how a lot of the stuff that I write now is like pure fiction and everything like that, and it's not really built upon like my experiences anymore, because like a lot of like the angst and the suffering and everything that I had, like I've processed through that for the most part. Right. But the presentation of the world has definitely grown by my experience of having you as a wife. No. Like I don't think that Adelia would have been as big of a focus character if it wasn't for you. And I think like if you kind of picture it early on in the world when I was building it, it was all dudes that I was hanging out with. with. You know, like I had the wrestling as the background, so a lot of it was built around that, like, just dude fiction.
Dudes being dudes.
And then I ended up working at Woods, and I ended up working at the places in Philly, and it was a much more gender and ethno-diverse group. And all of a sudden, a lot more characters became... It ended up becoming... Yeah, it wasn't just 7 dudes and two girls, and maybe you had a werewolf or something like that.
And also, I think since you know, we've been sort of using each other as, like, sounding boards and doing, like, our what-if sessions, a lot of the female characters, like, first of all, there's a lot more of them, and second of all, I think they have a lot more agency in the world now. Mm-hmm. Like, because there were, like, a lot of blondes.
Blondes don't have agency.
You know what I mean? Like typical fantasy female, you know? Like, it was fairly atypical, and now you've got, like, a lot of variety.
Well, I mean, when you only have, 3 or 4 girls in, like, 2 or 3 books.
Right.
It was... They didn't pass the Bechdel test?
Right. No, not Bechdel, is it?
Or is Bechdel the robot test or something like that?
I feel like that's the... No, I'm thinking of the ink blots.
That's the Rorschach. I don't remember. It might be Bechdel, it might not. But it's the whole concept of, can 2 women exist in a book and talk to each other without talking about a dude? And I think, for the most part...
Or any media, like movies, TV.
Yeah. I think for the most part, in the Tellest universe, you can do that, right? Like, not always. You know, like, romance is alive. Maybe not well, but...
Well, like Adelia's journey in particular, like, she doesn't really talk about dudes often. Right. It's about her journey and self-discovery and stuff.
We had 3 blondes? We had Adelia, Lila, and Naralendra?
And Zoe.
Oh yeah, I guess Zoe counts too. Yeah. But Alicia wasn't brunette enough for you?
No. She acted a blonde. I did not appreciate
Vanathryn wasn't brunette enough?
No. Well, actually, I like Vanathryn. She was pretty cool. Okay. But that was short story, not...
No, Vanathryn was in the trilogy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Vanathryn showed up the same time as Naralendra.
Gotcha.
Because they're cousins.
Oh. I don't know why that was the reaction.
Do you have any other questions that you want to ask me? We're going to save the other...
ChatGPT.
You're a mushmouth today.
I really am.
And
I did.
We got...
Stop it!
I know you got mushmouth because you got spinach teeth.
Wait, no, I don't.
You do.
No.
You do.
No, it's a string bean. That's very different.
The world needs to know.
Yeah, how dare you?
You're messing up my superfoods. So anyway, any questions, any follow-up, or do we want to...
I kind of want to go back to the band question, to be honest.
Okay.
Like, I need to figure out, like I want a better response to that. Like, I want to form a band with you right now. Like, who's your boy band 5?
Are we talking, like, American boy band, or are we talking K-pop?
Ooh, let's go K-pop.
Okay.
Let's make them pretty.
So, who's our guys with the boyish good looks?
You have Androckitus, I'm going to put in there.
Young Androckitus?
Yeah, young Androckitus for sure.
So let me find an Androckitus that we can throw in there. Where's my Androckituses? There's
one.
Oh, thank you. Uh-huh. Here's our Androckitus.
Okay.
Do we need 5?
He's giving lead singer for sure.
Do we got young Steel Tip? Or no? You're like, I don't like Kev.
No, he's not doing it for me.
Anson?
Yeah.
Spidermouth Anson?
Anson for sure.
I mean, he's not. He's
the guitarist.
He's the lutist.
Yeah, he's the lutist.
I feel like Hoagland.
Hoagland, absolutely.
Right, Hoagland could be.
Yeah, he's the emo guy, possibly drummer.
Well, are they an actual band like the Beatles, or are they like singers
Bit of
a
both.
la, you know,
Bit of both. They have instrumental talents.
because I feel like Hoagland would be the rapper. He would be
Hoagland would be the
R-
rapper.
RM, the rap monster, or
Oh
whatever.
my god, I love that. Thank you for the BTS reference. You just made my whole day.
And then
Bixby for sure.
Bixby and Frederick, or is
Bixby.
Frederick just the manager?
Frederick's the manager, Bixby and one of his dead bodies. Do the one with the dancing.
All right. So here's the thing.
He's
I
all
know
the backup
I
dancers.
know their lead single, right? The one that made them start, that made them, famous. Bixby wrote a song called "I'd Die for You."
Oh my god, I love it.
For those who have not read The April's Fools or any of the Bixby short stories, the whole thing about Bixby is that his power is that he can die a lot. So
I love it.
all right, does that answer your question, or do we need one more?
One more.
One more.
We need one more. Dirk.
Dirk.
Dirk. For sure. Put him in there.
Okay.
You need to appeal to the furries.
And we've done it.
And we've done it. That is our band.
It is done.
What are we calling them?
The
The Bixby Boys.
Bixby.
With Bixby as the lead.
I don't know. I mean, so what if you had to distill the Tellest brand into a decade in the last 100 years? What decade is it? Is it 80s? Is it 90s? Is it
80s?
80s? All right. So here's the thing.
Power metal Dennis in his like.
So here's the thing. If we're talking 80s, everything about the 80s, every band, they started with the word "the."
The Bixby Boys.
The Bixby Boys. It was "the" and then some random word.
Okay. The Strain.
The Strain. There we
The
go.
Strain.
The Strain dash GE. The Strain.
I love it. Love it. That's kind of a K-pop way to go about it too. They like to play with their titles. What you doing?
What do you got to say about it?
Luna, you want
No one
to
asked
contribute?
my opinions. Why are you breaking my stuff?
I'm sorry.
All right, we're gonna wrap things up. Let's head over to our. Why are you telling me to stop?
Because he's not talking. That means he's judging me really hard.
I judge you
said
all the
rap.
time. I judge you all the time. Folks, on the screen right now, you should see all the places that you can find me and not Rhianna. Tellest.com is a great first place to start. Hey, you had your chance. Tellest.com is a great first place to start because it'll bring you to all of our other projects. We have a bunch of places that you can find our maps. We are up to, I think, like 175 on Patreon and DriveThruRPG. Patreon.com/Tellest is where you can get all of our maps all at one time for like the low price of anywhere between like $2 and $10 per month. And the $10 level, I believe, unlocks a certain level of commercial rights as well. Tellest.etsy.com is where you can find physical versions of the maps. That is also where you're going to be able to, I guess, briefly find some of Rhianna's wands before we are going to diverge into two separate shops so that Rhianna can kind of split things up a little easier and better. And then battlemapfantasy.com is where you can go to get a la carte choices on DriveThruRPG. We've also got 2 TikTok channels for you to check out. Tales of Tellest is where you can find our doggies. We usually encourage Luna to bark and make noise, so you can check her out on there, as well as her 2 sisters, Zelda and Maisie. And Weird Witch Wands is where you can find all of the stuff that Rhianna is going to be working on. She's got a lot that's coming up, so definitely check that out on the daily. And then the 2 video channels that you can check out for us are youtube.com/@worldoftellest, where you can find Talking Tellest and our Making Maps features. And we're going to start doing a Fantasy React series soon as well. But if you do want to check us out live, twitch.tv/thattellest guy is the only place that you can do that. So definitely make sure to check us out there. That'll be it for us tonight. But we thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. But until then, we'll miss you.